Test. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to call upon Mr. Amit Sharma, who will be taking the master class on Solve for Impact, identifying entrepreneurship opportunities for problems worth solving. Amit is the CIO officer and head partnerships and CSR at Sidecare Cancer Hospitals, based in Bangalore. He has more than 24 years of work experience in Indian and global life sciences, healthcare, and IT organizations. He is currently engaged with a team of passionate professionals who are working towards providing world-class cancer care to Indian patients. Amit is also involved in multiple initiatives with NGOs and educational institutions in areas such as cancer awareness and providing treatment funding support, including seeking funds from CSR initiatives of organizations for such causes. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Amit Sharma onto the stage.
Thanks for the thing. Just a couple of things. We are starting late, so I just wanted to know what time do I have. I'm very bad at time management, so it's 9:50. You have to let me know. 10:45. Fair enough. I think more than enough. You should kick me before that. I hope so. So it's a privilege to be part of this conclave, and more so attending the session with some of you who have either experience or interest in the entrepreneurship. So yesterday we had a very, I would say, engaging sessions, and some even, in fact, I was part of one of the roundtable discussions internally where there was also sort of a discourse about entrepreneurship, and as someone mentioned, it's very difficult to isolate them. So I thought I'll start my probably the talk a little bit with some basics. So it's also a new topic for us. Just a little background about myself. Even though I manage technology, but I am a cancer scientist by education. I'm a pharmacologist from Manipal Medical College, and did my MBA, and then did some work in the life sciences, drug discovery and drug development in the cancer space, and then moved into the hospital 8 years back. So varied experiences, but now since last 8 years, glued on into the cancer delivery, core cancer delivery, and for last 2 years we have actually kind of spinned off or ventured into some of the super specialities. So, I think the session will be broadly divided into two parts, where first I will kind of divide into the theoretical aspect of entrepreneurship. Try for every session, if you're not a subject matter expert like me, obviously you will have to read through. So fortunately, read through some of these things, found something interesting. So I thought good to share. So pardon me if some of you are very well aware of these concepts, please ignore. But I'm sure many of you would find some relevance to it, and so we'll share that. And then some examples of entrepreneurship from the corporate world, and then come back to the topic, which is basically the impact of some of the initiatives of the entrepreneurial thing. So here I would like to very shamelessly admit that I would give more examples of something which we consider as an entrepreneurial initiative. And here I think we all need to understand that entrepreneur does not always mean a product or anything which is making or minting money out there. There is a, yesterday also we were discussing, so an idea itself is a seed or an embryo, as sir was mentioning yesterday. So we have germinated a lot of ideas and seeds. Fortunately, some of them are showing green shoots, and I'm sure as the year passes by, we are already getting some of the benefits from within the organization, but also I'm sure, I think all the other organizations whom we are working together. So that entrepreneurial idea that I mentioned, please bear with me. It's a team effort. It's not an individual. There are individuals who are taking it, but as an organization, we believe totally in teamwork. So all these ideas, entrepreneurial ideas, are also team efforts, unlike some of the so-called entrepreneurial example that I will start my presentation with. Again, part of my job description, passionate, whatever you call, a free marketing. But I will tell something about the organization I am part of. Wherever I go, I need to. So something about the hospital or site care. So not many people probably know about the North Bangalore, but you must have passed, almost all of you have gone through the airport. So on the left-hand side, from Hebbal, when you go to airport, you will see a glass building. 10 years back, it was probably the only building which was coming up, and now you have huge buildings, probably some 10, 15 million square feet of real estate coming up on that road. So we are now a small kid on the block in terms of the real estate present on an acre plot, but a home, a dear place for all of us who are from site care, and some of them are sitting here. 150 square feet of a space, which is I would consider as a premium setup. I would not categorize it a star category, but we try and make it a differentiating hospital, and some of these things will be mentioned in the steps that I would mention. A bit about our history. We started in 2016 as a 150-bedded hospital. We provide comprehensive medical care services. Started with oncology, but we have now ventured into some of the super specialty services, especially some of the Center for Excellences in the surgical space. But apart from the general treatment, there is a lot of focus which is also given on the comprehensive approach, because that we feel is the differentiator, which is kind of overlooked in the Indian healthcare space. So precision medicine, support services like psychology, nutrition, physical rehabilitation. So these are few of the areas which are now being talked more and more about in the Indian healthcare system. At a nutshell, something called as a patient-centric approach or a comprehensive approach, which was a core and is a core DNA of Site Care Hospital. We are located at Yelahanka, as I mentioned to you, probably 15 minutes from the airport. More importantly, we call ourselves, at least I call ourselves, as a sort of an Infosys in healthcare, where there is not a single or a couple of promoters who are the core stakeholders, like a family-owned business, owned by professionals, hardcore professionals. None of them have a big equity, but they have given their blood and soul into the organizations. None of them are doctors. So you'll be surprised, a hospital which is being set up, run, managed, owned by, none of them are doctors. So they all come from a vast research background, especially cancer research background and clinical development background. So that's why it is developed in a different way. They have vast experience in both Indian and international context in terms of the drug development. And the way we have kind of designed the hospital and the way we manage the hospital, the clinical decision making is left to the clinicians. There is a medical board, medical review board, clinical review board, and there is absolutely zero interference from the management, because we feel doctors are best decision makers in terms of what they need to do for the patient, whereas the management has to support them in their initiative. But at the same time, there has to be a very, very strong governance to ensure that what is being done to the patient is right. And there are very fixed rules, very, very solid boundaries and parameters that we have fixed for doing the right thing for the patient. Fortunately, in last 8 years, we have been awarded as the best oncology hospitals in multiple surveys across the hospital industry. A glimpse of just the experience. We have seen more than 15,000 inpatient, more than 1.75 lakh outpatients, performed more than 45,000 radiation therapy fractions, 40,000 chemotherapy fractions, more than 5,500 surgeries. For a new kid on the block with no prior history, taking on the big shots or the big hospitals, not a mean feat, I can tell you, and more so when we are talking of when 90% of our experience is in oncology. You can understand, nobody will go to a new hospital when somebody from your family is found to have cancer. So it took a lot of time, as I said, a lot of efforts, but we have reached there. So, but what is more important, what is more close to our heart is that we are actually Southeast Asia's highest Google-rated hospital, which and anyone and everyone can understand that nobody can fudge that data. So it's not only the rating, but the reviews, reviews about the clinical care, which is important. So with more than 6,500 Google reviews, we are 4.9 out of 5, which gives some sort of a credibility of the kind of work that is being done. So this is just a glimpse of the hospital. This is 7-year-old photograph. I can bet nothing has changed. You come to the hospital, you will find the infrastructure same as it is. So now coming back to the theory, so as I mentioned to you, because the topic was solve for impact, so I thought let me just go through some of the theoretical aspects, both for myself as well as for the audience. So impact. So there are multiple definitions. I mean, again, very, very generic words, and there are some generic generalizations. So general definition. So general definition, we say a significant influence or effect that marks any situation, individual or an organization or a system. We are talking, because it's a conclave, people from business have come, so I thought of finding a definition related to business context. So it's the impact is a measurable and tangible outcomes as a result of an action or an initiative on the stakeholders, including employees, customers, and the community. And more importantly for the social, because here we are talking of some impact which acts on the community, something social impact. So the social context definition is influence or effect of a program, policy, or action on well-being and development of a community or a society as a whole. And here I think SiteCare has been able to at least make some sort of an impact. Now entrepreneurship. So yesterday full day was spent on defining what is entrepreneur, what is entrepreneurship, but still one slide I thought I'll just keep it, because it's act of behaving like an entrepreneur while working within a large organization. So many of the examples which I will give, I mean, not necessarily always large organization. We are a very small organization, but we feel we have some entrepreneur. But generally, in the context, we are talking of a large organization where somebody takes a call. It refers to the practice of fostering innovation within the large organization, where the employees creates and manage a new business unit. But what is more important, I think I was reading out or I was mentioning out is it's not always the business unit. I think there is a lot to do with when you develop some new process itself, which is an entrepreneurship. Develop a new system, product obviously is there. We are a service organization. Obviously, we can't develop a product. So in our context, and in many of the people who are working in the service industry, so I think the development of a product, services, or a process is also an entrepreneurship. And most importantly, the encouragement which is given by the organization which they are working on. So what is the characteristic of an entrepreneurship? So first is innovative thinking. You have to innovate because you're working most of the time you're working in an organization which is stabilized, which is set, and you take it as it is. So you think that that's the way the world is run, that's the way organizations are run, and unfortunately, more so in Indian context. As Mr. Iyer was yesterday, Mr. Gopalan, he was saying that probably when he started in Tata, only 10% or maybe less than that, the ideas for entrepreneurship was coming from India. So the historical context is that we kind of feel that thinking out of the box or thinking away from the organization role or the way is not correct. It's getting addressed more and more. But the innovative thinking is obviously one of the important aspects of entrepreneurship characteristic, risk-taking. So somebody has to be willing to take the risk, calculated risk. And here I mean when I'm talking of an entrepreneurship within an organization, not only the individual, but the organization. So the risk appetite of an organization, of the stakeholders within the organization is also extremely, extremely important. Yesterday we were talking to people with Samsung. very, very pleased to see the kind of innovative approach. Bosch is another organization, 3M is another organization. So there are inferences. I hope and pray that very, very soon in the coming years, we will see more and more examples from the Indian context. Tata obviously is one example where we have seen. And resourcefulness. So the entrepreneur, the entire process should be able to leverage the existing resources in the new ways. It's very easy to just ask for something out or extra resources, but I think the trick of the trade is you work within the constraint, you find some solution, and then probably go back to the drawing board or to go back to the stakeholders to scale it up. And finally, leadership. Leadership from the management level, I would say, and an individual taking a leadership in terms of taking that call, of going that path of an entrepreneurship. So now identifying some of the problems worth solving. Now, slowly I'm kind of creeping into the topic out there. So the entire process, how do you identify which is the problem which is worth solving when we are talking of an entrepreneurial mindset? Entrepreneurs are very clear. They have one idea in their own mind and they want to do something within their own. But when we are talking of an entrepreneur who are working within an organization, then as somebody was mentioning, you have to keep the engine running. You have to keep the organization running. You have to ensure that your day-to-day job is also not compromised. But at the same time, you have to find out, okay, is there something that I want to do? And there are different triggers for turning into an entrepreneur or getting into that route. So one, for somebody like us, more so, identifying the customer pain points. Because at the end of the day, any organization is there as long as you have customers, you have happy customers. And no organization in the world can claim that they have 100% satisfied customers. So there are pain points, and there will always be pain points. And if there are no pain points also, you have to be smart enough to kind of probe, to kind of ask them what we can do better. We have Rekha, who is part of our team, who is part of our patient experience team in a hospital. Her job is actually to be on the floor, actually in the patient areas, just to ask them, what can we do better? Is there something bothering you? So it's not only when the patient or the customer will come back to you, but you also have to kind of go back to them and kind of probe them. So customer pain point collection is obviously one area. Internal inefficiencies. Important, I would say, a jargon which I have learned from my CEO, his pet word, inefficiencies in the system. So, but that's a fact. You have to find out the inefficiencies in the system. To solve them, some ideas, some products, some services will come in, which will become sort of a entrepreneurial project or whatever you can call it. So that's the other area. Market trends. I think market forces. I mean, it's extremely important. Unless you know what is happening in the market and you are in your own cocoon, you're dead. I mean, there are numerous examples. Nokia or Nikon or some of these organizations are examples. I mean, they just were swept away within a span of few years because they were totally kind of cut off what is happening in the market. So I think the market trend is also important, and a competitive landscape, something similar. So now finally, what is the method to identify such entrepreneurial opportunities out there? Within the organization I'm talking, employee feedback. So say a person can't reach out to everyone. And I'm talking now, again, more from my hospital standpoint. I mean, Rekha alone has a limit, has a bandwidth. She can't go back and ask everyone, okay, what is bothering a patient? She can touch base with, say, 4 patients, 5 patients, 10 patients. We have 150 patients a day who are in the hospital. And even if 2 patients have some issues, which can be a trigger for such of the thought process, either to make their life better or to make the process better. Or that will come from the feedback from the employee. So it's extremely important that you regularly gather the insights from the employee. Do a regular SWOT analysis. Just don't keep sitting on your laurels that we are doing good. Just don't be in that high that, okay, everything is right. Even for us, say 4.9, it is probably one of the best in the industry, but we don't sit together. We are still bombarded day by day for even one of such reviews, which is not up to the mark, to find out the root cause, not to pinpoint fingers. In fact, we celebrate, to be honest, that somebody has guts to actually kind of come back and say that, okay, I did wrong, maybe because of this feedback that I got, and then how we improve. So this SWOT analysis is extremely important. Data analysis, no point in saying, because every organization, including ours, has now access to huge data. And again, quoting yesterday, somebody was saying 80% of the data is actually just going directly entry and going into some sort of a dump nobody is looking at. I feel even more. But extremely important. Data can give you that insight which can do wonders to your own businesses out there. So, and lastly, what do you do with that? You've gathered all information, but you sit on that, or you just consider that, okay, now we have passed on that buck, let the CEO and the CFO and the promoters of the organization take a call. Not done. Not the case, definitely in an organization with an entrepreneurial mindset. Here, actually, it should start from bottoms up. I mean, somebody who understands that, okay, there is some problem in my area, and then I take a call. It doesn't stop from here, but it starts from here, and then I will solve that purpose. And then he go to the top and ensure that the problem is resolved. So, the steps to foster entrepreneurship depiction is anyway evident that you have to be a conduit, you have to facilitate that culture, you have to encourage that culture of innovation, because there are many organizations which we all know, again mentioned yesterday multiple times in conclaves, where, I mean, the culture is everything is right. And probably you are too small to even poke into the day-to-day working and suggest that. Changing again, but I think the organization, the whole organization, if they have the culture of innovation, celebrating that culture is important. Provide the resource and support. And resource is not always money. We always kind of go back and say that we didn't get support in terms of the money. Money comes later. I think there is a lot of things which can be done as a group with all the resources which is available, but that culture should be there that, okay, you need to be working in a team. Sometimes an individual can also work, but majority of time, this entrepreneurship also kind of works as a team. I'm talking more from a service industry and from my own experiences in the organization. So recognize and reward, celebrate, and most importantly, create the safer space for experimentation. So that's what Sir yesterday again was mentioning, that celebrate the failures, but also categorize the failures. I mean, negligence or malafide intention is not something which can be taken for granted. But if you know somebody has really thought out of the box, somebody has tried to do something apart from his day job, tried to solve a purpose, I think it needs to be celebrated. So these are the steps. Now coming back, before we go back, couple of examples I knew, but I kind of just again read through some of them. Most of you would know about it, as I said. So LinkedIn has a very interesting program called a LinkedIn Incubator. And most of these programs are similar. I mean, LinkedIn incubators. So again, the process is more or less the same. The employees shortlisted, they have an opportunity to pitch the ideas to the senior executive inside the organizations. If the so-called executives like those ideas, then they forward them and ask them to actually work more on them to create some products or services. And it's like LinkedIn has created its own venture capital. Fortunately, it's a cash-rich company. It's a product and a service company together, and they understand the importance of creating such and such products and services, which are differentiator also. So they actually promote this kind of a culture out there. Google 20% rule. I don't think so. Anybody in this hall will not be aware of a Google 20% rule. I don't know, to be honest, currently what is the status, because I'm hearing a little mixed kind of feedback about the way things are happening even in Google. But that's what we have read, multiple case studies in our MBA organization about the Google 20% rule. In a simple thing, 80% do your work, 20% do something which is totally unrelated to your work, which is related to your passion, which is related to if you find something which is a problem area, either within the organization or sometimes even the outside the organization. More important is outside your own work area. It actually fosters a culture of experimentation, and it tolerates the failure, which is more important. And it actually improves the employee satisfaction, because employee feel, I mean, I always say, the stickiness of the employee will always be there when the moment he moves into the organization, when he gels into the organization and he feels, I am wanted. Is there a place for me? Am I being heard? So this particular rule or this particular idea definitely is in that step. And some of the most successful Google products have come out because of this rule. The Gmail, Google News, AdSense. You can't imagine the billion-dollar revenue which has come out from some of these entrepreneurial. But nobody will know about who was the so-called germinating or a father of this particular idea. I mean, if you go to more detail, you will find out. AT&T, some call it as a AT&T Kickstart program, somebody called it as a Kickbox program, but very interesting, very simple program. So they say to be part of this Kickstart program, they do a sort of a couple of days of workshop. Big organization, have whereabouts, have means, so they conduct a kind of a workshop to give them an idea about the innovation concept, and then it guides them. This workshop gives them an idea about how to develop their ideas and turn them into a plan. So 100 people maybe attend, 25 come back with a plan, and then I don't know the mechanism of decision making, but whosoever idea is being detected or accepted, they are given $1,000 prepaid card to use this money, no question asked, no bill asked, nothing. You have a prepaid card, you create a prototype using that money, and then you present it. If you're comfortable with your prototype, you present it to the board, executive board, and if they like the idea, then they are turned into a product or a services again. So again, a corporate entrepreneurship program. And last is a AT&T Foundry program. So similar, I mean, it's like an AT&T incubator program. It's run around 6 cities in the world. Collaborators around the world come together. I think here the focus is more on collaboration. It's not to do only with an individual or out there, collaboration. And selected ideas are turned then into products and services. So I've given you a theoretical one. I will probably now maybe start and show you a photograph. Maybe some of you know, some of you don't know. Till yesterday night, I didn't know any one of them. I'll be very honest. Anybody know about him? Anyone who was employed in the organization, and then he thought that we are building so many of such products, but there is nothing which is appealing to the palate of his own community. I mean, the Hispanics and the Spanish and the Mexican. So he, interestingly, one day he heard the CEO of the organization, he said that I want each of my employees, out of how many, that guy, the very next day, he rang the CEO directly. And he said, yesterday you said, if you have the guts, has a potential to appeal to a bigger audience, which currently you're not catering to. And rest is history. Probably this product is a couple of $1 billion are kind of germinated. But good fact is, it's not that he's not acknowledged within his organization. Frito was acquired by Pepsi, celebration of the innovator within the organization. So I hope and pray, again, that we will see some examples, similar examples in the Indian landscape. Anybody know about